August 19, 1953. Tehran is tearing itself apart, not by accident, but by meticulous design. A manufactured mob descends upon the residence of Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh. Tanks rumble through the narrow avenues, their heavy turrets swiveling toward the very government they were sworn to protect. The air is thick with the smoke of burning newspaper offices and the deafening roar of paid agitators violently clashing with loyalist forces. Inside his besieged home, the Prime Minister listens to the artillery shells shattering his walls. He is trapped in a tightening net woven not by an invading army, but by unseen architects operating from a basement in the United States Embassy. No foreign troops have crossed the border. No formal declaration of war has been issued. Yet, a sovereign government is being systematically dismantled from the inside out. This violent climax in the Iranian capital marks a terrifying evolution in global conflict. The events unfolding under the blazing Middle Eastern sun represent the absolute pivot away from the conventional battlefields of the Second World War. The destruction of this government is a meticulously engineered proof of concept. It is the dawn of clandestine warfare, where the subjugation of a nation is achieved not with divisions of infantry, but with briefcases of cash, forged documents, and weaponized dissent. The path to this fiery August afternoon began 2 years earlier, rooted deep in the crude oil resting beneath Iranian soil. Mohammad Mossadegh, a fiercely nationalistic leader, had committed an unforgivable sin in the eyes of the British Empire. He nationalized the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, stripping London of its most lucrative overseas asset. The British economy, still rationing bread and coal in the aftermath of the global war, faced a devastating and immediate financial blow. London demanded retribution. MI6 drafted plans for a massive invasion to seize the Abadan refinery by force, but a direct military strike risked provoking the Soviet Union, which shared a massive northern border with Iran. This Cold War calculus demanded a new approach. Realizing they could not act alone, the British sought Washington's unmatched resources. Initially, the American government hesitated. The Truman administration viewed Mossadegh as a bulwark against communist expansion, refusing to act as the enforcer for British colonial interests. But Dwight D. Eisenhower's inauguration in early 1953 brought an aggressive shift. Driven by Secretary of State John Foster Dulles and CIA Director Allen Dulles, the new administration viewed the globe through a strictly binary lens. Any unaligned nation was considered a Soviet domino waiting to fall. MI6 seized upon this geopolitical paranoia, shifting their argument from lost British oil to the looming threat of Soviet domination. They convinced their American counterparts that Mossadegh's power was slipping, and the Iranian Communist Party, the Tudeh, was poised to fill the vacuum. This framing transformed a corporate dispute into an existential national security crisis, unlocking the CIA's full operational machinery. The resulting mission was codified as Operation Ajax. It was a bold, untested theory of statecraft designed to overthrow a government without leaving American fingerprints. The objective was to replace Mossadegh with a pliable monarch, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the Shah of Iran. To execute this unprecedented maneuver, the CIA dispatched its chief of Near East operations, Kermit Roosevelt Jr., who slipped across the border with $1 million in untraceable currency. Roosevelt established a secret command post in Tehran and immediately began purchasing a shadow infrastructure. He did not buy weapons or hire mercenaries. He bought influence. CIA funds flowed directly to newspaper editors, religious clerics, and street gang leaders. The agency flooded the Iranian press with fabricated articles denouncing Mossadegh as a communist sympathizer and a traitor to Islam, waging a highly sophisticated war of perception. This psychological campaign was designed to fracture Iranian society. Fake communist rallies were staged with hired thugs attacking religious leaders to alienate the powerful clerical establishment from the prime minister. Roosevelt's network systematically dismantled Mossadegh's base of support, isolating him within his own capital. Clandestine operators manipulated the fabric of civil society, turning the Iranian people into unwitting foot soldiers in a foreign proxy conflict. Simultaneously, British and American agents worked relentlessly to secure the absolute loyalty of senior Iranian military officers. They found a willing partner in General Fazlollah Zahedi, a disgraced commander chosen to replace the prime minister. The final puzzle piece required the Shah to sign royal decrees dismissing Mossadegh and appointing Zahedi. But the young monarch was paralyzed by indecision, terrified of popular backlash if the covert plot failed. It took weeks of intense psychological pressure from covert emissaries and the Shah's own twin sister to force his hand. When he finally signed the decrees in mid-August, the trap was set. On the night of August 15th, the military moved under cover of darkness to arrest the prime minister. But the intelligence network failed. Mossadegh had been tipped off. His loyalist forces ambushed the coup plotters, arresting the ringleaders while the terrified Shah fled the country in a panic. Operation Ajax had completely unraveled. In Washington, the CIA headquarters sent an urgent encrypted cable to Tehran, ordering Kermit Roosevelt Jr. to abort the mission and evacuate the country immediately. The failure seemed absolute. The United States had gambled its geopolitical standing in the Middle East and lost, exposing its hand in a botched regime change. The resulting diplomatic fallout threatened to be catastrophic for Western interests. But Roosevelt ignored the direct orders from his superiors. Operating entirely off the leash, he decided to double down on the manufactured chaos. He recognized that the initial failure had actually created a massive vacuum of confusion. The Iranian public was stunned by the Shah's sudden flight, and Mossadegh, believing the immediate threat was over, ordered his loyalist troops back to their barracks. Roosevelt saw a fleeting high-stakes window of opportunity to weaponize the resulting instability. Utilizing his remaining funds, the CIA operative unleashed the full force of his purchased mobs on August 19th. Thousands of paid demonstrators poured into the streets, armed with clubs and knives, chanting fiercely for the return of the Shah. The mob was a blunt instrument, directed by intelligence officers coordinating from the shadows. They systematically attacked pro-government newspapers, political offices, and key infrastructure, projecting a flawless illusion of an overwhelming public uprising. The sheer scale of the manufactured violence paralyzed the government's response. Military commanders, unsure of who was truly in control and heavily swayed by the massive influx of foreign bribes, began to defect en masse. Tank battalions that had defended the prime minister just days earlier now rolled through the streets in direct support of the coup. The illusion of a revolution had successfully manifested into a hard, undeniable tactical reality. This brings the narrative back to the shattered walls of the prime minister's residence. As the Sherman tanks fire point-blank into his home, Mossadegh realizes the true nature of his defeat. He is not yielding to the organic will of the Iranian people, but to an invisible, heavily funded mechanism of foreign intervention. He escapes over a garden wall just moments before the mob breaches the compound, looting his personal possessions and setting the historic building ablaze. His escape is tragically brief. Within 24 hours, the man who dared to challenge the economic dominance of the West surrenders to the newly installed military junta. Mohammad Mossadegh is subjected to a humiliating show trial, imprisoned in solitary confinement, and eventually banished to strict house arrest for the remainder of his life. The Shah returns from exile, empowered by his foreign backers to establish an autocratic regime heavily reliant on a brutal, secret police force. The immediate strategic objective was achieved with terrifying efficiency. The oil flowed back into Western markets, and a crucial geopolitical anchor in the Middle East was secured against Soviet influence for decades. For an expenditure of roughly $1 million and 0 American casualties, the CIA had completely altered the trajectory of a sovereign nation. In the heavily guarded halls of Washington and London, the operation was celebrated as a flawless masterstroke of modern intelligence. The success of this endeavor fundamentally rewired the strategic logic of Western foreign policy. It proved definitively that proxy operations could serve as the primary tool of statecraft in the nuclear age. The template forged in the fires of Tehran, leveraging economic pressure, psychological warfare, and purchased violence, became the definitive blueprint for the Cold War. It was a dark, effective model that would be exported and ruthlessly replicated in Guatemala, in the Congo, in Chile, and across the globe. Yet the silent legacy of 1953 extends far beyond the immediate tactical victory. The destruction of Iran's democratic experiment planted seeds of deep, generational resentment that could not be contained by military force. The clandestine machinery that secured short-term geopolitical stability simultaneously laid the groundwork for the explosive anti-Western revolution that would detonate 26 years later. The operation demonstrated the immense, unseen power of covert intervention, while forever blinding its architects to the devastating long-term costs of manipulating the fate of nations. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button.